I've been using the M1 Mac Mini for about 9 months now, and so in this video I'm going to talk about it. Bit of a long-term review in line with the 1-year anniversary of the computer's release. Hi, I'm Valanchi. I am a DJ and founder of local DJ collective Soul Dust Productions. I am an aspiring music producer and creative. And if you want to find out about the world of DJing and music production, from my perspective, also tech and music tech in general, click on the subscribe button below. There's more coming your way. So in June of last year, Apple had announced Apple Silicon, its system on a chip replacing the Intel chip that it had been using on its machines previously. So as I said, it is a system on a chip, so essentially instead of having various parts all around the computer, it brings a variety of things in one chip. It was able to do two things. One, increase performance while making it really efficient in terms of throughput. And that translates not only into higher performance than any chip that has been made of its kind, also the efficiency of that chip made it so that it's power efficient. But we weren't able to see the proof in the pudding until November last year, when Apple ended up announcing the first 3 computers that featured what's known as the M1 chip. One of the machines is the one I got, the M1 Mac Mini, that was also along with the M1 MacBook Air and the M1 MacBook Pro. And I'll talk today about the M1 Mac Mini because I happen to own it. I bought it back in February, and the specs for the machine, it is a machine that has 16 gigs of unified memory, has an 8-core GPU, and it does have a 1 terabyte drive in my case, but you can start off with 256 gigs up to 2 gigs. It also has a gigabit Ethernet port. You can upgrade to a 10 gigabit Ethernet port if you wanted to. But with those specs, I ended up paying about $13.50 for it. The machine, if you want to be able to get the base model, the one with 256 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM, that'll set you back about $700. And I've also talked about it previously in a video that I've done back in May, talking about my 3-month experience with the machine. So you are welcome to take a look at that video to check out. I don't want to go through a lot of what I said in that video, but I want to be able to talk about how things are now. I should also mention that you can be able to add 2 displays on the machine. So you can add a Thunderbolt 3 display, that's the 6K, and you can be able to add a 4K with the HDMI 2.0 port. It's still a fantastic machine. It's still the best computer I ever bought, and it is still Apple's cheapest M1 computer. And don't equate cheap for inferior. It is nowhere near inferior. M1, when that chip came out, it really blew away the competition. Even Apple and its high-end machine, the Mac Pro and the iMac Pro, those machines that cost $5,000 and more, and they just end up blowing those away. For one thing, when I use it at home, I've never heard a fan, even when the temperature outdoors reaches 80 degrees and higher. With my 2013 MacBook Pro, if it even gets to 75 degrees or higher, the fans will kick in and my computer will throttle like the devil to the point where I would have to go away for a few hours because I wasn't able to use it. In addition to the specs that I mentioned, it also had on the back a couple of USB-A ports and a couple of Thunderbolt 3/USB-C ports. HDMI port is back there, and as I mentioned, the Ethernet port, either gigabit or 10 gigabit depending on the option that you want to be able to get when you get it, and also 3.5 millimeter headphone jack is also in the back of the machine. So on my machine, I am using one of the USB-C ports to run a USB-C hub that Satechi makes, and that makes it so that instead of me having to reach in the back, I'm able to use the hub to be able to get to all the ports and then some from the front. So with that USB hub, it also has a pair of USB-C ports in the front, along with a pair of USB-A ports, a pair of SD card readers, one for the regular size and the other for a mini size, and also a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. On the other USB-C port on the back, I have my audio interface plugged in, the Apollo Twin from Universal Audio. When I bought the machine, the drivers were not available, so M1 support was not quite there. Now it is there. There's a driver for it that supports Big Sur. They solved that problem, and in fact, as far as music production and also software in general, particularly in music production and video production, when the M1 machine came out, and also when Big Sur came out, there were a whole host of compatibility issues with software. That's always kind of common with music production. Every year when a new operating system gets dropped, in the case of Big Sur, which came out last year, just like the last several years that a new operating system comes out, there are plenty of music-related software, DJ software, and other software out there in general that don't have the support for that operating system. Usually you have to wait sometime between 3 and 6 months to do it. And it's kind of understandable why those folks decide not to be able to support the operating system right away, because Apple can go in and change things in the operating system, and there are things that may end up being in the beta that might get pulled out, and vice versa. So the vendors don't really want to be able to try to put in a feature that will end up breaking in the final release of the operating system. So that's part of the holdback. And usually if you ask for support if you're running the beta of the operating system, they'll tell you, well, you're going to have to either contact the manufacturer, or you're just going to have to stick with the operating system that we officially support. But the main DAW that I use on the computer is Logic. I've been running Logic mostly under Rosetta. Rosetta is the engine that is the bridge between the Intel machine and Apple Silicon native. Even though Logic itself has been written as an M1 native program, just like all the other Apple applications at this point, software, plugins, and also drivers made by third-party manufacturers weren't as plentiful, especially when I got the machine. There was still plenty of manufacturers out there that didn't have support, and because of that, you run the potential issue that your favorite plugins may not work And even worse, your favorite hardware may not work if you choose to upgrade the operating system. That hadn't been that much of a problem for me when I got my machine. I was able to run Logic, and I ran Logic under Rosetta for the most part, which meant that I was able to use a lot of the third-party plugins that were on my machine. But now fast forward to here, and it isn't just Logic that has Apple Silicon support. Ableton right now is in public beta with Apple Silicon support. Studio One already has that. Native Instruments is starting to be able to get M1 support under Rosetta. Reaper, the open source software Reaper, has been released for the M1 Mac. Cleveland has gone that route, as well as Melder Productions, and there are others that are getting there, but in the meantime, you can be able to still use whatever your favorite DAW is under Rosetta. You can get the third-party plugins to be able to work that way. My Logic experience has been stellar. I've never had a better experience on my Mac with Logic than I have with my M1 Mac Mini. It's just been phenomenal. It's been really spectacular, and it just made such an enjoyable experience that all I had to really focus on was just making music and not have to worry about any tech problems. Now, it doesn't mean that I haven't experienced some crashes, but usually those crashes were the result of perhaps a plugin of some sort. But the crashes have been exceptionally rare. I've only gotten like maybe 2 or 3 of them because of a plugin issue. Otherwise, it's just been so great using Logic. The fact that I can just focus on my creativity and making music and not having to worry about being slowed down by workflow issues and performance issues and system overload. It's just been great. I'm also really pleased by the fact that I could be able to use LumaFusion on the machine. I had to be able to do that a few times when I had problems with my iPad Pro. LumaFusion is a professional grade video editor for the iOS platform, but it also works in Big Sur and higher with Apple Silicon on the machines, and it just runs like a champ. I have been really pleased with the performance. There's strangely been very little in the way of universal apps that go across platforms. I don't mean you buying them separately. I mean one application that should be able to run on both platforms, and you're only paying one price. That's exceptionally rare. I don't know why that is right now. I don't know if developers don't want to cannibalize their model. I can't say, but that's something I like to see more of myself. The productivity app Notability has gone universal. In fact, they're phasing out their macOS version so that they can be able to just operate with one software that runs on both macOS and iOS. But that's far few in between. So I previously mentioned in my last video on M1 Mac Mini that the setup is really easy through and through. I didn't have any problems with my Apple wireless keyboard and mouse being found doing setup. I used a migration assistant to move over everything off my old computer onto the new. Took a couple hours to do. I've hardly had any issues with Bluetooth at all. I did have a couple of times when my keyboard had stopped working. That was really rare. I just ended up having to turn off and turn back on the keyboard, and then it started working again. I haven't experienced those Bluetooth issues that have been prevalent when the machine was released back in November. But since then, a lot of those issues have been stamped out either by Apple putting out updates or the manufacturers and vendors putting out their fixes to being able to take care of the issues. Now, that doesn't mean that all of it has gone away, but enough has gone away that people can get on and use their machine. Ever since the M1 Mac Mini has been released, there have been a number of Macs that have been released through M1. In addition to the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro that was initially released last year. Last spring, the redesigned iMac had also been released with the M1 chip. And then just a few weeks ago, Apple has announced the next iteration of the M1 chip with M1 Pro and M1 Max, which of course are high performance versions of the M1 chip. Those got introduced with the 14 and 16 inch MacBook Pros, and those chips got introduced along with the 14 and 16 inch MacBook Pros that were redesigned with those chips in mind. There's way higher performance, but you're also paying quite a bit more. I'm not going to be going over the specs of those. There are plenty of YouTube videos I've been talking about, and much has been said about whether or not you should go ahead and get either or. If you already have an M1 machine, and if you're already doing music production, and if you're already doing video production, and if you're already happy with the performance of it, that's great, it's wonderful. You should hold on to them and not be in such a rush to get them, because there have been people who ended up getting those machines and have been testing them and doing benchmarks, and of course these benchmarks are going to run rings around the original M1 chip, but the M1 chips, they'll still run rings around most of the Intel chips, and they even run rings around machines such as the high-end Mac Pro and the iMac Pro, costing over about, those machines costing about $5,000. And for less than $700, you are getting a powerhouse of a machine. You don't need to spend the extra money unless you really want to. But one thing you might want to do is maybe to get your hands on one of those high-end machines. I would actually get my hands on one of the M1 machines and try it out. You have 14 days by the time you buy these machines to be able to decide whether or not you want to hold on to them. 14 days for you to be able to check it out and see if it's for you. Because if you can be able to get those powerhouses and save some money and be able to use it elsewhere, that would be a good bargain, I think. I'm really happy with my M1 Mac Mini. It's been a great experience. Logic has been going game busters. I've been able to make some good music out of it. I've also been able to use it to prepare my DJ tracks on it. So that's all I got to say about it, except if you have any questions about the M1 Mac Mini and my usage of it, you can go ahead and leave your question down in the comment, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. One thing I forgot to mention, if you go to the Amazon site, you can be able to find a refurbished M1 Mac Mini. I mentioned that you could get the Mac Mini for about $700, but if you get refurbished, if you get the base model refurbished, you can be able to get that for less than $600. And I'm sure that there's plenty of people who are reselling or have been reselling their M1 Mac Minis in order to be able to jump up to the higher spec machines. But again, I would think about that because you got already a higher machine that is going to be also very cost effective. You'll be saving a lot of money and you'll be able to get a lot of power. Alright, that's all I got for you folks. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video and if it's informative for you, please like it. If you want to be able to subscribe to my channel, and I will be getting into more of the music and DJ side in future videos, but I'm still going to be talking about tech for a while. In my next video, I'll be talking about my M1 iPad Pro, which I got last July. And I will talk more about that. Thanks very much for joining me, and I hope to see you soon in another video. All right, thanks, and take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.